It for the public, and there was a definite commercial purpose. It's somewhat different if you play it in your own home for your own amusement, and particularly if you play it when you're not home and view it later on. One of the problems is that the TV station will have commercials, which I think is a necessary element in your
You
business.
better believe it, sir.
If these things are recorded on this kind of equipment, they now have certain gadgets that will permit them to take the TV commercial off, so that they end up with a product.
There should be a law against that.
Without, oh, that's absolutely right. You see, it depends on whose ox is going.
Right.
Now, if the TV commercial has been removed and you just have the program, it becomes a different program. Your consideration for having broadcast it has already been removed. Yes. And it's particularly bad with motion pictures such as Gone with the Wind that come back every 2 years, and which the TV station sells a lot of commercial time for, and if everybody has it in his own home, there isn't that much of a demand.
Yeah.
Did you record Mr. Yarnell?
Yes, I'm recording him again. I have a whole bunch of him on tape, and I'm getting even more, even as we speak.
I hope I get a copy.
I wonder about how big an industry I know in recording they call it bootleg, but it maybe is an appropriate term here as well. How big an industry could that become, or how big an industry is it right now? The piracy of materials off the air.
Well, the piracy of sound recordings had grown to the point where it was well over $500 million worth in the United States alone. In the world, I would say a very conservative estimate was well over $1 billion. It has been whittled down very substantially here, primarily due to the very, very effective work by the FBI throughout the country. And incidentally, you have a very fine FBI unit here in Cleveland. But the very efficiency of the FBI in rooting out pirate products all over the country led to a new problem called counterfeiting, where not only the sounds were duplicated, but the actual packaging, labeling, etc.
So it looked like the tape cassette that they sold looked exactly like the original one.
That's right, and those were then sold in legitimate department stores, record stores, chain stores, and the public was being deceived, and the record companies, of course, were being deceived too.
Well, now lately there have been a number of raids, and we keep hearing figures like hundreds of millions of dollars worth, street value of dubs have been seized, and equipment for dubbing them have been seized. How do those raids take place?
Well,
tell us about
along the East Coast in the sound recording field, I happen to be familiar with this because I worked closely with the FBI on this particular matter. We had about 29 places raided, and about $150 million worth of finished recordings, that's 8-tracks, LPs, pirate and counterfeit, seized, as well as equipment and components. Now, this was based on a very, very intricate undercover operation that the FBI had conducted for about 2 years. One of the things they did was set up a store out on Long Island, and they established credibility as entrepreneurs, and of course were being approached constantly by the shady people in the industry, and moving along from one to the other, they were able to make the case. And that is, I would say, probably going to be about 50% of the piracy in the eastern United States that was taken care of just on that one series of raids. But it took a great deal of effort, and it took a great deal of concentration by the FBI, and in my opinion there are some very, very well organized people involved, so I wouldn't be surprised if there are RICO prosecutions.
We have to pause for a couple of minutes, and then we'll come back and take a few phone calls from our viewers out there. 578-1000 is our number. And if you'd like to ask Mr. Yarnell a question about what we've been discussing today, give us a call. We'll be right back.
The wind that comes back every 2 years, and which the TV station sells a lot of commercial time for, and if everybody has it in his own home, there isn't that much of a demand.
Gosh, isn't that interesting?
Mr. Yarnell?
Yes, I'm recording him. I have a whole bunch of him on tape, and I'm getting even more, even as
I
we
hope I
speak.
get a copy.
I wonder about how big an industry This is interesting. Golly.
That's just like we were there. That's just...
It's perfect. The picture is perfect. Look at that. It's amazing. And that's the playback of what we were talking about just a few minutes ago. We want to take some of your calls on this subject. Mr. Yarnell, how do the networks feel about this? The fact that a good program comes down the line, and let's say a MASH, and you grab it off the air, or a Starsky and Hutch, and you grab it and put it in your little library on a little tape that costs you $15. And when the playback time comes, there'll be a whole host of Americans who've already seen that show and who have it in their libraries. Are the networks upset about this technology and the proliferation of these little inexpensive sets?
I don't think they're quite as upset about it as they will be when there are a lot more units in the home. I think they're more upset about the commercial piracy, where their programs are being sold to offshore installations and abroad by unlicensed people.
So they're not worried about the guy who owns this particular machine and has it at home. They're worried about somebody stealing their stuff and making a lot of money out of it.
That's
in other
correct.
words, short-circuiting the process and taking profits that are rightfully theirs.
That's correct, but I think there is a growing awareness on their part of the potential dangers in the future.
Well, let's take a few phone calls, see what kinds of questions our friends have out there. Good morning. Go ahead, please.
Yes, I'd just like to make a comment.
All right.
And that is, I think an individual who's watching the television set in his home has every right to copy that, because he is indirectly paying to watch the TV, whether the TV set is on or not, because you're on the air because of your sponsors, and we pay for the products that the sponsors put out. So we are paying for the television set, and we have every right to copy it. Thank you.
Okay, an interesting economic argument.
Well, I don't agree with his premise entirely. By viewing and by receiving, either directly or extrasensorily, the message of the commercial, he is in effect paying for his viewing of the thing, but he is not paying for the copying of the thing.
The ownership of it.
Yes, the visual image that I have of something is a different thing from my reproduction of that image through a copying machine.
It might be more like, you say you pay $3.50 to go to a movie, but that doesn't mean that you can have the movie
right.
when you come out.
I can't take the seat home with me after I leave.
And you can't take the print either.
That's right. And when I take a ride on a bus after I've paid my fare, I can't take the bus home with me to use the next morning. I think when that case is finally decided, and I believe it will be coming to trial sometime this month, there will be some very interesting results if it ever goes to conclusion, because I think the law is fairly clear based on precedents that many of the activities engaged in by the sellers of this equipment violate the copyrights.
Hey, your question, please.
Yes, good morning. I'd like to know, is there something being done to stop the manufacturing of the unit for home use? And if not, why are they just going after the consumer rather than going to the manufacturer?
Okay. We'll have to arrest Japan, won't we?
Well, that's a possibility. We once tried to beat them. The fact is that there is an effort made by two motion picture companies, as I said, the MCA Universal and Disney Studios, who brought a suit not just against home retail customers. They brought it against the manufacturer, the distributors, and retailers. And I think that will, to a large extent, determine what the status of the law is.
Any way you look at it, we're headed for a revolution in communications, aren't we?
No question about it.
We're glad you came this morning to explain to us a little bit of the complex field that you're dealing with. Thank you very much for coming here today. And thanks to Bill Jaycox for loaning us this and that, and we've seen how it works here this morning.